In a bustling market, a neglected German shepherd catches the eye of a tender-hearted 5-year-old named Lily. What begins as a simple act of kindness spirals into a tale of courage, loyalty, and an unbreakable bond. When danger strikes, a child swept away by a river's current, will this broken dog rise as a hero? Stay tuned for a journey of heart, peril, and triumph that proves love can conquer all. Hi everyone, welcome to Narrated Tales, where every story touches the heart. Today I am very happy to share a new story with you. Let's get started. The Saturday morning market buzzed with life, a chaotic symphony of vendors shouting their wares, the clatter of coins and the hum of eager chatter. The air carried the mingled scents of fresh bread, ripe fruit, and the faintest whiff of damp earth from a recent rain. 5-year-old Lily skipped alongside her mother, Sarah, her small hand clutching the hem of Sarah's jacket. Her wide hazel eyes darted from stall to stall, taking in the colors and bustle with childlike wonder. She wore a bright yellow raincoat, far too big for her tiny frame, its sleeves flopping over her hands. An endearing sight that made Sarah smile despite the weight of the grocery list in her pocket. As they turned a corner near a stall piled high with apples, Lily froze mid-step. Her gaze locked onto something, or rather someone, tucked against a weathered wooden post. A German shepherd sat there, its once proud frame slouched, ribs faintly visible beneath a coat of matted, grimy fur. The dog's ears drooped, and its deep brown eyes stared at the ground, as though it had long given up expecting kindness from the world. A frayed rope tethered it to the post, loose enough to suggest neglect rather than restraint. Lily's heart gave a sharp tug, an ache she couldn't name but felt deep in her chest. "Mummy, look," she whispered, tugging at Sarah's sleeve with urgency. Her voice trembled with a mix of pity and excitement, her small brow furrowing as she pointed toward the dog. Sarah followed her daughter's gaze and sighed softly. She knew that look in Lily's eyes all too well, a spark of compassion that flared whenever they passed a stray cat or an injured bird. Lily had always been this way, her tender heart drawn to creatures in need. Sarah adjusted the grocery bag on her shoulder, her practical side warring with the ache she too felt at the sight of the neglected animal. "Okay, sweetie," she said, her tone gentle but cautious. "We can go take a look, but stay close to me." Lily nodded eagerly, her raincoat swishing as she edged closer to the dog. She crouched a few feet away, her knees sinking slightly into the damp earth. "Hi there, boy," she whispered, her voice soft as a breeze. She stretched out a tiny hand, palm up, her fingers trembling with both nervousness and hope. The dog lifted its head, sniffing the air cautiously. Its ears twitched, and for a moment its eyes met hers. Dark pools of wariness softened by a flicker of curiosity. Sarah watched, her heart tightening. She admired Lily's bravery but couldn't shake a mother's instinct to protect. "Lily, be careful," she warned, stepping closer. "He might be scared." "I know, Mummy," Lily replied, her focus unwavering. She inched forward, her voice a soothing murmur. "You seem so sad. It's okay. I'm here now." The dog tilted its head, and to Sarah's surprise, it didn't pull away. Instead, it leaned ever so slightly toward Lily's outstretched hand, its nose brushing her fingers. A faint wag stirred its tail, a hesitant sign of trust that made Lily's face light up with a grin. "Look, Mummy, he likes me," she exclaimed, her voice bubbling with joy. Sarah couldn't help but smile, though her eyes flicked to the vendor behind the stall, a gruff man with a stained apron, barking prices at a customer haggling over apples. He barely glanced at the dog, as if it were just another piece of clutter. Lily stood, brushing dirt from her knees, and marched toward the vendor with a determination that belied her small size. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her voice clear despite the quiver in it. "Is this your dog?" The man glanced down at her, his bushy brows knitting together in mild annoyance. "Aye, that's mine," he muttered, waving a dismissive hand. "No good, though nobody wants him, just takes up space." Lily's heart sank, a lump forming in her throat. She swallowed hard, her small fist clenching. "May I pet him?" she asked, her tone polite but firm. The vendor shrugged, already turning back to his customer. "Do what you want, kid." Lily hurried back to the dog, her steps light with purpose. She knelt again, this time daring to stroke its matted fur. To her delight, the dog didn't flinch. Instead, it pressed into her touch. its tail wagging a little more freely. "You're not no good," she whispered fiercely, as if willing him to believe it. "You're special. I'm going to call you Max." Sarah watched, her chest swelling with pride and a pang of worry. She crouched beside Lily, resting a hand on her shoulder. "He does seem to like you, sweetheart," she said softly, "but he looks like he needs a lot of care." Lily turned to her, eyes wide and pleading. "Can we help him? Mummy, please? He's so lonely." Sarah hesitated, her mind racing. They hadn't planned on a dog, especially not one in such rough shape. But the hope in Lily's face, the way Max leaned into her daughter's touch, tugged at her resolve. She glanced at her husband, James, who had just caught up with them, a bag of carrots dangling from his hand. He raised an eyebrow, reading the scene instantly. "Uh-oh," James said with a playful grin. "I know that look. We're in trouble, aren't we?" Sarah sighed, half laughing. "She's got her heart set on him, James." Lily clasped her hands together, bouncing on her toes. "Please, Daddy, Max needs us." James knelt beside Max, giving the dog a careful once-over. "He's a bit of a mess, isn't he?" said, but his tone was warm. He scratched Max behind the ears, earning a low, grateful rumble from the dog's throat. "All right, let's talk to the man." The negotiation was swift. The vendor, eager to be rid of what he called a burden, agreed without a second thought. Sarah handed over a few crumpled bills, more a formality than a price, and Lily's face lit up like the sun breaking through clouds. She gently untied the rope, her small hands trembling with excitement. "You're coming home with us, Max," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. As they walked to the car, Lily stayed close to Max, her hand resting on his back. He limped slightly, his gait uneven from neglect, but he kept pace with her, his head brushing her side. In the back seat, Lily sat pressed against him, stroking his fur as he rested his head in her lap. His eyes fluttered shut, a quiet sigh escaping him, a gesture of trust that made Sarah's throat tighten. She glanced at James in the driver's seat, catching his soft smile in the rearview mirror. "He's already hers," James murmured, shaking his head in wonder. Sarah nodded, her heart a tangle of warmth and apprehension. Bringing Max home was just the beginning. She knew the road ahead would be challenging. Max bore the scars of a hard life, and healing him would take more than love alone. But as she watched Lily whisper to him, her tiny voice promising safety and care, Sarah felt a flicker of hope. This neglected dog, found amid the chaos of a market, had sparked something extraordinary in her daughter. Little did they know, Max was about to prove just how deep their bond would grow. The first few days with Max were a delicate dance of patience and uncertainty. The modest house, nestled on the edge of a quiet neighborhood, with a backyard sloping down to a small river, felt both too big and too small for the German Shepherd. His matted fur shed in clumps across the hardwood floors, and his ribs jutted beneath his skin, a stark reminder of the neglect he'd endured. Lily, however, saw none of that. To her, Max was a treasure, a friend who needed her as much as she needed him. Every morning she'd bounce out of bed, her yellow raincoat swapped for a pair of dinosaur pajamas, and race to his side. She'd plop down beside the worn blanket they'd given him, her small voice filling the silence with chatter about her dreams or the clouds she'd seen drifting past her window. Sarah watched from the kitchen, her hands wrapped around a steaming mug of coffee, her brow creased with worry. Max was skittish, flinching at the clatter of a spoon or the creak of a door. When James tried to pet him, Max cowered, his tail tucking between his legs, a low whine escaping his throat. It broke Sarah's heart to see the fear in those deep brown eyes. But it was Lily who seemed to reach him. Her tiny size, her gentle touch. Something about her put Max at ease. He'd lean into her hand when she stroked his fur, his tense muscles softening, and soon he began trailing her around the house like a shadow. "He's scared of us," James said one evening, leaning against the counter as Sarah chopped vegetables for dinner. His voice was heavy, tinged with frustration. "But with Lily, it's like he knows she's safe." Sarah nodded, her knife pausing mid-slice. "She's got a gift with him, but we can't ignore how unpredictable he is. What if he snaps one day?" James rubbed his jaw, his eyes drifting to the living room where Lily sat reading a picture book aloud to Max. The dog rested his head on her lap, his ears twitching as if listening. "We'll figure it out," he said finally. For her. Determined to help Max heal, they reached out to Dr. Emma Carter, a local animal behaviorist with a reputation for working miracles with traumatized dogs. She arrived the next afternoon, her graying hair tied back in a loose bun, her calm demeanor instantly soothing the tension in the room. She knelt a few feet from Max, observing him with keen eyes as he pressed himself against Lily on the couch. "He's been through a lot, Doctor," Carter said thoughtfully, her voice low and steady. "That flinch, the way he watches every move, it's trauma, plain and simple. He needs stability, patience, and a slow build of trust. Start with positive reinforcement, treats, praise, gentle exposure to new things, and let Lily lead. He's already bonded with her." She handed Sarah a training plan scribbled on a notepad, her handwriting sharp and precise. "It won't be quick," she warned. "There'll be good days and bad, but he's got a spark in him. I can see it." The weeks that followed were a test of endurance. Some days Max made strides, fetching a ball Lily tossed across the yard, his tail wagging tentatively, or sitting for a treat when James called his name. Lily's face would light up, her laughter echoing through the house. "See, Mummy? He's learning," she'd crow, clapping her hands as Max nudged her for more attention. But there were setbacks, too. A slammed door once sent him scrambling under the table, growling softly, and he'd snap if cornered. Though never at Lily. Her presence was his anchor, her voice a lifeline pulling him from the shadows of his past. One crisp afternoon, the air thick with the scent of fallen leaves, Lily and Max played near the riverbank behind the house. The water gurgled softly, its surface glinting under the autumn sun. Lily giggled, tossing a stick for Max to chase, her boots crunching against the gravelly shore. Max bounded after it, his movements freer than they'd ever been, his tail a blur of motion. Sarah and James watched from the back porch, sipping tea, a rare moment of peace settling over them. Sarah's shoulders relaxed, her chest warm with pride. "He's come so far," she murmured, leaning into James. "Yeah," he replied, his voice soft. "She's mending him." The tranquility shattered in an instant. Lily, chasing Max as he darted after the stick, ventured too close to the river's edge. Her foot slipped on a patch of wet moss, and with a startled cry, she tumbled into the water. The current, deceptively swift for such a small stream, caught her instantly, dragging her tiny body downstream. Her yellow raincoat flashed like a beacon as she flailed, her scream swallowed by the rush of water. "Lily!" Sarah's mug crashed to the porch floor, her voice raw with terror. She bolted forward, James right behind her, their hearts pounding in their throats. But Max was faster. His ears shot up at Lily's cry, and without hesitation he spun around, his paws digging into the earth. With a powerful leap, he plunged into the river, his strong legs cutting through the water as he swam toward her. Sarah stumbled to the bank, her breath hitching as she saw Max reach Lily. He clamped his jaws gently around the sleeve of her raincoat, his head straining above the surface as he paddled against the current. Lily clung to him, her small hands gripping his fur, her face pale but determined. With a final surge, Max dragged her to the shallow edge, collapsing onto the muddy bank as Lily coughed and sputtered, water streaming from her hair. Sarah dropped to her knees beside them, pulling Lily into her arms, her hands trembling as she checked her daughter for injuries. "Oh, my baby," she sobbed, tears mixing with the river water on Lily's face. James knelt beside Max, his voice thick with emotion. "Good boy. Good boy." Lily, dazed but unharmed, wrapped her arms around Max's neck, burying her face in his wet fur. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice shaky but fierce with love. Max nuzzled her back, his tongue lapping at her cheek as if to reassure her she was safe. His tail gave a weak wag, exhaustion evident in his heaving sides, but his eyes shone with a new light. Pride, loyalty, unbreakable trust. Sarah looked at James, her chest aching with gratitude and awe. "He's not just a dog anymore," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. James nodded, his hand resting on Max's head. "He's family." The moment cemented Max's place in their lives. His courageous act washed away any lingering doubts, replacing them with a profound certainty. This dog, once discarded and broken, had found his purpose in protecting the little girl who'd rescued him first. The journey to rehabilitate him was far from over. But as Lily clung to him on that muddy riverbank, Sarah knew they'd face whatever came next together, bound by a love stronger than any current. The days following Max's heroic rescue of Lily were a blur of gratitude and quiet celebration. The house hummed with a new energy, Lily's laughter brighter, Max's steps lighter, as if the river had washed away more than just mud. Sarah found herself pausing in the midst of chores to watch them. Lily sprawled on the living room rug, sketching pictures of Max with crayons, while the dog lay beside her, his head resting on her knee. His fur, once matted and dull, now gleamed after a thorough bath and vet visit, though his ribs still hinted at his rough pass. James would join them, tossing a ball across the yard, his deep chuckle mingling with Lily's squeals as Max chased it with growing confidence. For the first time in weeks, Sarah felt the knot of worry in her chest begin to loosen. But peace, it seemed, was fleeting. One overcast afternoon, as Lily and Max played fetch near the porch, a shadow fell across the yard. Sarah glanced up from her gardening, her spade stilling in the soil. A man stood at the edge of their property, arms crossed, his weathered face twisted into a scowl. She recognized him instantly, the vendor from the market, his stained apron swapped for a faded jacket. Her stomach dropped. "That's my dog," he barked, his voice cutting through the crisp air. "Saw him at that pet fair last week. Didn't think you'd turn him into some kind of star." Lily froze mid-throw, the ball slipping from her hand. Max's ears flattened, a low growl rumbling in his throat as he positioned himself between her and the man. Sarah stood, brushing dirt from her hands, her pulse quickening. "He's ours now," she said firmly, stepping forward. "You gave him up." The man sneered, his eyes narrowing. "I didn't give him up. You took him. He's mine and I want him back. Especially now, he's worth something." Lily's small hand tightened on Max's collar, her face paling. "No!" she cried, her voice trembling but fierce. "Max is my dog. You didn't take care of him. He was sad and hungry. He deserves better." The vendor took a step closer, his boots crunching on the gravel. "You little brat," he snapped. "I'll call the cops. Say you stole him. We'll see who he belongs to then." Max's growl deepened, his body tensing, and Sarah moved quickly, pulling Lily behind her. "Get off our property," she said, her voice steel. "Now!" He glared at them, muttering curses under his breath, then turned and stalked away. Sarah's knees felt weak as she watched him go, her arms wrapping around Lily, who buried her face in her mother's sweater. "He can't take Max, can he?" Lily whispered, her voice muffled and small. "No, sweetheart," Sarah said, though doubt gnawed at her. "We won't let him." That evening, over a tense dinner of spaghetti, Sarah recounted the encounter to James. His jaw tightened, his fork pausing midair. "He's got no claim," he said, his tone resolute. "But if he's serious about the police, we need to be ready." The next day, they took Max to a local pet fair, hoping to distract Lily and showcase his progress. The park buzzed with barking dogs and laughing families, colorful booths lining the paths. Max, now stronger and more alert, drew admiring glances as he trotted beside Lily, his tail wagging. At an agility booth, Lily's eyes sparkled. "Can we try, Mummy?" she asked, tugging Sarah's hand. Sarah smiled, nodding, and they signed up. The instructor, a wiry man named Tom with a kind grin, guided them to the course. Tunnels, jumps, and weaving poles. "Let's see what he's got," Tom said, clapping his hands. Lily knelt beside Max, whispering, You ready, boy?" His ears perked, and when she signaled, he bolted forward. He soared over jumps, threaded the poles with precision, and darted through the tunnel, his movements fluid and fierce. The crowd gasped, then cheered as he crossed the finish line, Lily beaming beside him. Tom whistled. "That's some dog," he said, shaking his head in awe. "You've got a natural." But the joy was short-lived. Sarah spotted the vendor lurking near the sidelines, his glare icy. He approached later, his voice venomous. "Think you're clever, huh? I'll take him back, legal or not." The threat hung heavy, shadowing their triumph. Back home, Sarah and James decided to act. They contacted Mia Patel, a lawyer specializing in animal rights, her office a cozy space cluttered with dog photos and law books. Mia listened intently as they explained. Max's rescue, his transformation, the vendor's threats. Lily sat clutching Max's leash, her small face set with determination. "You've got a strong case," Mia said, her voice confident. "We need evidence of his neglect and proof of your care. Photos, vet records, witnesses, Let's build it tight. They gathered everything. Blurry snapshots of Max's skeletal frame from that first day, vet bills showing his recovery, a glowing letter from Dr. Carter. Lily wrote her own note, her handwriting wobbly but heartfelt. Max is my best friend. He saved me from the river. I love him. Please don't let that man take him. Sarah's eyes stung as she read it, her resolve hardening. The vendor's harassment escalated. He'd linger near the house, shouting claims, once banging on their door until James chased him off. The tension wore on Lily. She'd wake from nightmares, clinging to Max, whispering, "You won't leave me, right?" Sarah's heart ached, but she masked her fear with smiles, promising they'd fight. The court date loomed as they prepared for a local agility competition, a chance to show Max's worth. The park thrummed with energy, dogs barking, owners cheering. Lily and Max took the course, his grace breathtaking as he leaped and weaved, finishing to thunderous applause. A judge, a stern woman named Clara, approached. "Remarkable team," she said, her eyes warm. "He's thriving." In court, Mia presented their case with precision. Photos flashed on a screen, Max's early misery, then his vibrant present. Dr. Carter testified to his trauma and recovery. Tom praised his agility. Lily's letter read aloud, hushed the room, her words piercing. The vendor scowled, claiming theft, but his story unraveled. Witnesses from the market recalled his cruelty, his disregard. Judge Ellis, a gray-haired man with a steady gaze, ruled. "The evidence is clear," he said, his voice firm. "Max was neglected under your care, Mr. Dawson. He's flourished with his family. He stays with them, permanently." The vendor protested, but Ellis cut him off. "You're unfit. Case closed." Relief flooded Sarah, tears spilling as she hugged Lily, who clung to Max. But the victory deepened when an investigation, ordered by Ellis, exposed Dawson's history. Other animals starved, beaten, abandoned. The community rallied. Neighbors like Mrs. Henley, an elderly widow who'd seen Max's change, vowing to protect him. News spread, outrage fueling support. At home, Lily sat with Max on the porch, her small hand in his fur. "You're mine forever," she whispered, her smile radiant. Sarah watched, her chest full. Pride, love, peace. Max, once discarded, had found his place, his strength a testament to Lily's faith. Against all odds, they'd triumphed, their bond a beacon of hope. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over Lily and Max on the porch, their story felt like a quiet miracle. It's a reminder that even in the darkest corners, be it a neglected dog or a struggling heart, love and resilience can spark something extraordinary. Max didn't just save Lily from the river. Together, they rescued each other, proving that hope thrives where compassion dares to reach. What a journey, right? It leaves you wondering, can a bond this pure heal any wound? I think so. Thank you so much for listening to Lily and Max's tale. It means the world to share it with you. If it touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that stir the soul. Drop a comment below. Have you ever seen love transform a life like this? Maybe you've got a furry hero of your own. We'd love to hear about it. Thanks again and see you in the next one. Take care.